BJ Penn was a motherfucker.
I didn't consider myself a martial artist. I just thought of myself as a fighter.
He was considered one of the greatest fighters of a generation.
At one point, they had BJ Penn ranked #1 in the world, pound for pound, and I will tell you, that was right.
He became only the second fighter in UFC history to become a two-weight world champ.
He's done! It's over! It's over! We have a new welterweight champ!
Put that BJ Penn against any 155-pounder that's ever lived.
BJ Penn is the UFC lightweight champion!
But what happens to a champ who just refuses to let go when you simply can't get that last victory?
I don't know if BJ is capable of competing at the level that he's competing at right now.
Well, he's lost, what, 6 in a row?
Yeah.
Who tells you when to stop?
I want BJ Penn to retire.
Penn refused to quit. Why? Was there a darker reason?
Former UFC champion BJ Penn has been arrested for DUI.
For BJ Penn to dismantle his legacy in such a rapid way.
How could such a successful fighter end his career with the longest losing streak in the UFC?
Things might not be good at home. Doesn't mean you put him in a cage.
And what was the final straw?
BJ Penn's UFC career is over. Dana White told ESPN he will not offer the 40-year-old another bout after video showed Penn fighting on the streets of the Big Island.
Stick around to find out what made BJ Penn a UFC Hall of Famer who just couldn't quit. I'm Nick DeEer, and you're watching OOSS. Penn was born in Hawaii on December 13th, 1978, to J.D. Penn, who is of Irish-American descent, and Lorraine Shin, who is of Korean and Hawaiian descent.
I don't know where I became a fighter. I don't know how it happened, but I remember I started fighting all the guys about my size around town. But I remember talking to a girl one day. We were just hanging out, and I was like, oh, so-and-so, he's the toughest of all the little guys. And she's like, no way, you're the toughest of all the little guys. And I'm like, really, me? I'm tough?
At the age of 17, Penn began training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after being introduced to it by his neighbor, Tom Carlos. Carlos had put up flyers in the local gyms looking for people to train with, and BJ's father had called him and said his boys were interested. Carlos then taught BJ and his brothers everything he knew.
As kids, we knew nothing about working out, how to do it right, so we'd probably work out once a month. We'd lift weights. We had a little weight room downstairs, and then we'd run to the end of the road and run back. And we would think that was the best training you could ever do. We would think nobody in the world could beat us in a fight.
Shortly thereafter, BJ moved to San Jose, California to begin training at the Ralph Gracie BJJ Academy with Dave Camarillo, with whom he lived and became close friends. It was here during this time in San Jose that he decided to pursue a martial arts career.
I don't know how jiu-jitsu just grew on me so fast. I used to think about it all the time.
He soon after moved to Brazil. Working out of Nova União, he was eventually awarded his black belt in 2000 by Andre Pederneiras. Penn is thought to have earned the fastest legitimate black belt of all active BJJ practitioners, rumored to have received it in only 3 years.
Just to get your black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back then was a big deal.
If you're a real phenom, you can get it in like 7 years. But I know he got his black belt in jiu-jitsu in 3 years, which is just bananas fast. Like 1/10 of 1% fast.
And then a few weeks later, he competed in the Mundials.
Mundials is the Super Bowl, it's the World Series, it's the NBA playoffs, it's the pinnacle.
And let's just say the results were unexpected.
Ended up winning 5-0, and that was it, and becoming the first non-Brazilian black belt world champion.
And that's right, the first non-Brazilian to win in the black belt division in the World Championships, ever. And after that, people took notice.
All I knew is that BJ Penn had come and rolled with us. He was very talented at jiu-jitsu, and we liked him, and we wanted him in the UFC. I didn't know it at the time. BJ Penn is a very special individual.
Penn came out of the blocks sprinting, laying down the likes of Joey Gilbert, Din Thomas, Cal Uno, Paul Creighton, Matt Serra, Takanori Gomi, while only suffering one loss during that entire run to Jens Pulver by decision. But Penn really started to shine and truly make his mark on the UFC on January 31st, 2004, when he fought Matt Hughes for the welterweight championship. And that's right, after fighting at 155 and not getting the belt, he went up a weight class to 170 to take on 5-time defending champ. Coming off a 13-fight win streak, at the time, some say he was the best in the division and the best welterweight in the world. Needless to say, Penn was an underdog.
Up against Matt Hughes. Let's go!
We're going to find out right now if it's courageous or foolhardy.
Absolutely. Oh, a quick left jab.
Cal Uno, he's got nasty hands.
Hughes wants the takedown.
Oh, BJ's got his back.
Let's see what he can do here.
This is where BJ gets guys in weird style. He's incredibly flexible. BJ has got incredible back
control. BJ looking for the choke. He's got the choke. He's down. It's over. It's over. We have a new welterweight champion.
Not long after this, BJ would come up against one of the greatest welterweights to ever step in the octagon. But before we get to that, let's talk about how BJ Penn got kicked out of the UFC.
The welterweight champion, BJ Penn.
After the Hughes fight, Penn signed to fight for K1, claiming that there was a lack of challenging fights left for him within the UFC, even though he had only fought once at welterweight. Frustrated at Penn's apparent lack of respect, the UFC promptly stripped Penn of his welterweight title, claiming that he breached his contract by signing to fight in another organization and that he refused to defend his title. Penn countered with a lawsuit as he believed that his UFC contract had expired, a motion which was later denied. Penn fought 4 times in K1, winning 3 and losing just once to the future UFC light heavyweight champion, Lyoto Machida. Machida weighed in at 220 pounds for the fight, while Penn could only get his body weight up to 191 pounds. Still, Penn put up a good fight, and the decision was actually somewhat controversial, as some people believe Penn could have been awarded the victory. At UFC 56, Dana White announced that the UFC had come to an agreement with Penn and that he would be making his much anticipated return at UFC 58 against Georges St-Pierre. Penn ended up losing by decision. Some felt this was unfair and that the scoring system prioritized takedowns over damage. Afterward, BJ stated he felt the decision was wrong. I went to the club after the fight, and he went to the hospital. Years later, GSP would say this about how talented BJ Penn was.
I believe BJ Penn in his prime, the most skilled martial artist that I ever fight. He was good everywhere. He had very little weaknesses.
After following GSP with a loss to Matt Hughes, putting them at 1-1, BJ fought Jens Pulver again, but this time coming out on top. But it's the fight after that which cemented BJ Penn as a UFC great and a future Hall of Famer. BJ Penn faced up against Joe Stevenson at UFC 80 to fight for the UFC lightweight belts after Sean Sherk lost it to a steroid scandal. This time in Penn's fighting career is now considered his pinnacle, and this fight didn't let down fans. A brutal and bloody affair which won SureDog.com's Beatdown of the Year.
Here we go. That's it. That's a wrap. It is all over. Just the second man in UFC history to win a championship in 2 different weight classes.
Number 2! It has nothing to do with who's the best. It's who wants it the most.
You look at him and him winning the lightweight title and the welterweight title, one of the only guys to do that. This is the stuff of legend.
BJ Penn was born to fight, man. That's what that kid was put on this earth to do.
After this fight, Penn defended his lightweight belt against the former belt holder, Sean Sherk. Fighting with such confidence, he even called the fight after a knee to Sean Sherk's head.
BJ just didn't give a f***. He was so confident, particularly like early in his career.
Next was the GSP rematch, which didn't go as well for Penn. GSP was too much for him, losing the fight with a corner stoppage. Though this fight did come with controversy. Greasegate.
BJ Penn tried to discredit me for my win.
GSP's cut man wiped Vaseline on his shoulders and back, which is frowned upon. After the loss, Penn did file a lawsuit with the Nevada Gaming Association, but it went nowhere. Afterward, Penn steamrolled Kenny Florian and then Diego Sanchez, who at the time had cruised to a 21-2 record. But BJ wasn't worried about it. The fight was called for a doctor stoppage after Penn opened up Sanchez's forehead with a head kick. This would secure Penn's record for most consecutive lightweight title defenses. But then, things started to go downhill. Penn met up with Frankie Edgar, a young and up-and-coming fighter who won the lightweight belt off of Penn by unanimous decision. Then again in the rematch, a unanimous decision for Edgar, who seemed to be getting better while Penn was declining. After the second Edgar fight, Penn followed up with a quick fight with Matt Hughes, finalizing their trilogy. Penn won by KO, but that would be his last win in the UFC, even though he continued fighting for the next 9 years, landing him the longest skid in UFC history. Penn lost to Nick Diaz, then Rory McDonald, then Frankie Edgar for a third time.
I honestly think if BJ didn't win that fight, he probably would have retired. And it's the right thing to do, because I hate to see these guys with these legacies and these guys that have been great to just keep hanging on too long.
And then he lost to Yair Rodriguez, and then Dennis Seaver, and then Ryan Hall, And then...
Because he terrorized me for friggin' a week and wouldn't stop texting me for 3 days straight and talked me into it, so...
He lost to Clay Guida.
I want BJ Penn to retire.
But Dana just couldn't seem to say no to BJ, no matter how bad it got.
My God, it's a brutal, horrible strip club fight.
In fact, Dana still lined up a fight with Penn and Nick Lentz after that. Until...
BJ Penn's UFC career is over. UFC President Dana White told ESPN he will not offer the 40-year-old another bout in the octagon after video showed Penn fighting on the streets of the Big Island.
He won't fight again.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. It's not even that this was the last straw. It's hard for me to, to turn him down. But after what I saw on that video, BJ needs to focus on his personal life and get himself together.
Another street fight. BJ's alcohol use started to become even more of a problem after he was forced to retire.
Former UFC champion BJ Penn is under investigation following a car crash Friday where police say he hit 2 poles in Hilo.
BJ Penn has been arrested for DUI.
She alleged a wide range of physical and sexual abuse suffered throughout the course of their 10-year relationship. Penn is under an active police investigation after allegedly threatening a farmer with a machete.
And then an ill-fated run for governor. Obviously, Penn had a problem letting go, leaving the fight game behind.
I'm done.
You done?
I'm done 100%. And it was hard for me to get out after being in there for 20 years. I mean, that's your identity.
Yeah.
He wasn't the first and he won't be the last. It's a common story among athletes. They dedicate their entire lives to something, and when they get too old, their body's no longer able to do the things their minds need from them. They have to find another outlet, another purpose. What is legacy?
I'm just supposed to be a kid living over here, maybe living down the road from my mother, and just living in Hilo. I didn't think anything would be special about my life.
Well, BJ, when you were on top, you were one of the baddest motherfuckers on earth. You really were. You were a guy who went all the way up to heavyweight to fight Lyoto Machida.
What has he left behind? Is it the highs or is it the lows?
I always tell people you have to judge a fighter by the heights they reached, not where they fell afterwards. And when you talk to fighters about all-time greats, there's one guy that everyone has on that list. That guy's BJ Penn.
And how will he truly be remembered?
I just want them to think that, here was a guy who gave everything he had, gave his best shot, and was as nice as he could be along the way.
Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend, as this really helps us out. If there are any other fighters you would like to learn more about, please let us know in the comments below. Let us know if you think a prime BJ Penn versus a prime Khabib, who would win? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Nick the Ear, and you're watching OOSS.